recap a question that I just answered for Brandy, because maybe the info will be helpful to a number of you who have gone through the situation. Because let's face it, right now we're in like uncharted waters right now with this whole COVID-19 epidemic. We're in uncharted waters, uncharted territory. Everybody's kind of just going along as is. But what you need to know is, if you are in a situation where you have a current custody order and the other side is using this whole epidemic to play games with you and to use the kids and the kids' health and safety as a pawn in this whole thing to create a scheme wherein hi Elizabeth, wherein they all of a sudden don't want to follow through with the order of court because of this, virus that's running rampant throughout the nation. And they're using that as a way to basically control the situation, because usually people that do that, they are controlling by nature. Some would say even narcissistic by nature. But in reality, it's one of the weakest moves that you can ever really do, is to use a situation like this for your benefit, and in enforcing and controlling a custody order of court. So I'm going to discuss that, and I'm going to talk to you guys about that, and I'm going to recap some of the things that I've talked about with other people. First off, if you're dealing with, I'll just say, asshole like that's using this to control the order of court, here are the steps that you need to take. First off, number one, most states and local counties, I mean, I shouldn't really say most, because I've only heard of maybe a dozen, but even so, a dozen, like I'm sure a lot of other states are doing it, in counties. Most of them have ruled that even if they are on a stay-at-home order or a lockdown or quarantine, or however you want to call it, a lot of them have language in there that current orders of court, and it doesn't even have to be custody, just any order of court that has been entered or issued prior to the lockdown or the stay-at-home order or this outbreak or whatever. Most states and counties are basically indicating that those previously entered orders of court are essential or necessary, so that you must follow those orders of court, okay? And so step one is determining if that is the case in your state or county. And you can do that by going to your state or county government website. So it would be a .gov website, and search for it, and search the language on what's essential, what's non-essential. So that's step number one. Once you have that, if you have this a-hole that's trying to control everything and use this to his or her advantage, then you take a screenshot of that language, or copy the link and text it or email it to them. And you don't need to be a dick about it. Just say, hey, listen, our state or our county or whoever is stating that court orders are essential and that we should follow them, and that there is no exception listed. It doesn't list health or safety of the children. It doesn't list whatever. So we basically, we need to follow this order of court, right? So then what happens if the other side says, nope, sorry, F you? Well, first off, that's evidence that they're a dick. Second off, you need to not play into that, right? I'm not on step 2 yet. This is just, what if they respond in a certain way and says, no, screw you? Don't play into that. I've always been taught, and I've always tell people, you are not going to win an argument with someone like that. You do not get in a pissing contest with a skunk, because you're not going to win, especially when you don't have any access to any sort of judge or mediator or referee or anything like that to tell the person that they're full of shit and that you're right. You don't have any access to any of that. So don't play into their hands by arguing with them. Send them the information. Say, look, this is essential. This is necessary. We need to follow this order of court. Okay? And if you don't acknowledge that they're trying to negotiate or make demands, or, something like that to control the situation. If you don't acknowledge that, then what they'll probably do is continue to do that. And hopefully they continue to do that in text, because that's very damaging to a custody case in a situation where you're literally playing with the relationship of a child and the other parent based on something that's not even true. That's not that you have to follow through with the order, right? Now, if the kid's like sick or like deathly ill, or like the one parent has tested positive for COVID or something like that, well, that's a different story. But if it's just the basic safety of the child, like, look, we are all at risk. Like, I'm sorry, but we are all at risk. So that's step one. Find that language, screenshot that language, and send it to them. Okay. Step two is to, via email or text message or whatever your communication is. I just say you should put it on text so you can memorialize it. But if you want to talk to them, talking is even better if you can be rational people. But you need to convey to them, preferably even if it's by telephone, that you follow up with a text, so that you can memorialize the conversation. But tell them, don't argue with them, because you're not going to win at this point. Tell them, hey, look, listen, if you're concerned about the safety of our child or our children, like, look, I appreciate that. And you have to understand that I'm concerned too, and that I'm going to be doing everything that I can to keep them safe, and to make sure that they're safe, and to make sure that they're not contracting this disease, and to make sure they're not spreading the disease if they contract it. You're not going to 100% guarantee that. Nobody is. If they claim to you that they're better at it than you are, like, I mean, unless one parent's like taking them like all around every single grocery store and like having parties at their house or something, other than that, like, there's all a possibility of us like getting into this sticky situation like everyone else in the nation. So anyway, you convey that to them after sending it and say, look, we need to follow this order, based on this language and this lockdown or this stay at home, like, we need to follow this order. I'm just as concerned as you are, and I'm taking steps necessary to protect our kid. So we need to follow the order, right? If they continue to be an ass, and if they continue to refuse, you can't win that argument without access to a judge or referee. Okay. So if they refuse, then the next step that you do is do it every single day. Follow up every single day. Hey, look, just touching base again. We need to follow this court order. The law and the lockdown and the language in the lockdown or the stay-at-home order very clearly say that they're essential. We need to move forward with this, and I want to pick them up at whatever time, or I want to meet you at the exchange point at whatever time, right? If they refuse again, memorialize it, screenshot it. Hopefully if they're trying to, negotiate with you, hopefully that's being stated again, so you can say it again, or screenshot it again and memorialize it, and do it the next day, right? And then what happens is, granted, now, if they're a big enough of a dick to hold the kid from you for, days, weeks, or months at a time, like, that is absurd. But if they are, it sucks. I get it. It sucks really, really bad, but you're going to be able to use that so that when the courts do open, that you can smash them in the face with a contempt or possibly even a modification if it's real blatantly dickish behavior. So it's certainly not in their best interest. And then the next step, I think that was step 4, is to use that against them in court when the courts finally do open. And step 5, in the meantime, is continue to try to get regular contact with them. On top of continuing trying to get actual physical contact, continue to try to get FaceTime, phone calls, text messages with the child, depending on obviously how old the child is. But that's really all you can do, because courts, I mean, I can't speak for every court in the country, but in my discussions, in my personal and professional experience, courts aren't doing shit right now. Like, they're just not. Like, our courthouse here, like, you can't, I haven't been there, but I'm being told that, like, you can't even really get in there. for anything. So this is like big time shit. This is, like I said, this is uncharted territory for a lot of reasons. So that's really the only the steps that you take. You know, those are really only the steps that you can take at this point. And don't get into a pissing contest with them. Don't get into an argument with them. One of the other phrases I always would say would that never get into an argument with an asshole, because onlookers won't know who's who, right? So as soon as you start arguing over meaningless, arbitrary stuff that really you could twist the facts however you wanted, you know, you can make the arguments in open air however you want them, you're never going to win them. So those are really the steps you need to take if you have a jerk, controlling, narcissistic, whatever you want to call them, person on the other side that's trying to use this epidemic as their advantage in the custody situation. It's horseshit. It just is. But those are really the steps that you can take. And that's that.